I'm Kelsie Carlson, and I will be getting us started on this chilly morning. And my project is about limiting the concussion rate in female athletes. This is a little bit about what we'll be talking about for the next 30 minutes, I'm told. And I don't think I'm blocking it. Okay. We're going to go through basically a literature review that I performed my junior year, and then what my original concept for a project was, along with what my current project entails, and then some conclusions I've drawn. Okay, first part, literature review. Okay, so defining a concussion. A difficulty in cognitive functioning in the brain caused by a severe trauma to the head is what a concussion is. This is a common affliction in soccer players, and this picture is actually from an IPFW soccer game. And there are a variety of different symptoms. There's nausea, disorientation, amnesia, headache, dizziness. People have been known to pass out from concussions. However, there is a wide gamut of different symptoms and severity. So it's not just, you can have a minor headache and that can be a concussion, or you can be passed out and that can be a concussion as well. So there's just a wide range of severity there. The reason why I'm focusing on girls soccer is because they are the most susceptible to concussions. This is from a study done across high school sports, and the concussion rate is how many concussions occur per 100,000 athletic exposures. An athletic exposure here is defined as any time a player sets foot on the practice field or the game field. So a kid can rack up, 5 exposures a week, and there's 20 kids, that's 100 exposures. So exposures can wrap up pretty quickly. As you can see, girls soccer does have the highest concussion rate. I didn't include football because they aren't a sport here at IPFW, and it was a little bit not as relevant to this. But as you can see, another interesting trend from this is that the girls' concussion rate is always higher than the concussion rate of the boys in their the same sport. So that's another interesting trend, and that'll play a factor later in my presentation. But yeah, so you can see there's every 100,000 athletic exposures, 33 girls experience a concussion. Here are some, if you remember last year, I don't know if you came, there I presented on some myths and facts of concussion prevention. I'm just going to recap that here because that, again, plays a role later in my project now. The first is headgear, and headgear in soccer is commonly thought to prevent concussions. It has not been proven effective. I've done a number of research articles and read a number of research articles about it, and while it might decrease the peak impact, which is the ball striking your head, it's not sure if it decreases it to a safe level. So you can't say for sure, and while it might decrease it by, I think, 5 newtons, something small, you can't say that that's enough to prevent a concussion. And so it's very important to realize that this does not prevent concussions, because a lot of people think that once they put on headgear, they're safe and they're good to go. But this is not true. Another myth of concussion prevention is mouth guards. They have not been proven to be effective in any way of preventing a concussion. I've read a number of studies, again, that show that concussions occur at the same rate in both athletes wearing mouth guards and athletes not wearing mouth guards. And that's been proven in both soccer and rugby. Those were the studies that I looked over. And then there's a number of ways that you can prevent concussions, though. That's the good news. And so one such way is strengthening neck muscles. And then, as you saw in the table at the beginning, the men have fewer concussions compared to their female counterparts in each sport. And so this is thought to be due to the fact that they have stronger necks as well. And it has been proven empirically that they do have stronger necks, which you can kind of understand, even just looking at different men and women. So it's thought that by strengthening the muscles in your neck, you can, in fact, prevent concussions, because it will be able to hold your head stable when a ball impacts it. Using the correct ball size, intriguingly, this can actually help prevent concussions as well. A little background in soccer for you. So younger kids play with a smaller ball. The balls are proportional to the kids' heads. So younger kids use a size 3 ball, and as they progress in soccer and progress in age, they start to use a bigger ball, and then they finally get to the size 5 ball that's being used by your World Cup teams, your national teams. And it's found that using a ball that is too big can actually lead to a larger impact being created on the athlete's skull, increasing your chance for getting a concussion. This might seem kind of strange to you who haven't played soccer, but it's a common thing when you're young. You don't really know what size ball you should be using, and you don't really know the negative effects of using the wrong size ball. And you just use whatever one's around, whatever one's cheapest, but coaches need to make sure that the correct ball is being used. It's also important to enforce the laws of soccer. This was interesting to me, but most concussions occur during flagrant play, so when something happened that shouldn't have. A lot of these actually go uncalled, so you're just like perpetuating the athletes to continue to do it. If they don't tell them it's wrong, they will continue to do it because they gain an unfair advantage. Actually, surprisingly, most concussions are caused by an elbow to the head, which is an illegal play in soccer. I found that really interesting. The data for this comes from a study of Norwegian and Icelandic soccer, and they took videos and they recorded all the head traumas that occurred, and they went like what action caused it to occur. So it's a really interesting study, but that's an intriguing one that can be fixed rather easily. And then that cute little rough up there is my little brother. So, and then you can also avoid cracked balls, and I presented on this one last year as well. I found this one really surprising. Cracked balls can actually absorb water and increase their weight by 20%, but you probably don't realize that when you're going to head the ball, that its weight is increased, so you don't prepare your neck muscles, you don't prepare adequately for the increase in weight of the ball. Then there are a couple more. The U.S. soccer actually set forth new guidelines this past, I think it's 2 months old, it's brand new information. And U.S. soccer is the governing body of soccer in the United States. And then they've said that kids under the age of 11 should not head the ball ever in practice nor in games. It's actually called for a foul now. And then athletes under the age of 13, so 12 and 11-year-olds, should limit their number of heading exposures to around 20 a week in both practices and games. So they're hoping to limit the number of headers even attempted and making it illegal to attempt a header. And the thought process there is that the proper technique hasn't been instilled in the children, and their neck muscles just aren't ready to handle heading the ball. Which leads me to my sixth way of preventing concussions, which is teaching the proper technique. Most athletes, I remember back when I was young, no one actually taught us how to head the ball, and luckily I never really wanted to head the ball, so it worked out, but most athletes are not taught how to properly head the ball, but it is found that if you learn how to head the ball properly, you will prevent concussions because you will use the correct surface of your head to head the ball. And then tying into that, teaching heading with a ball with less pressure might actually decrease the concussion rate as well because it creates less of an impact. Okay, so that pretty much sums up the research I've been conducting, the literature review I've been conducting over my junior year and a little bit into this year. And then last year I presented over this as well. And my original project was to conduct surveys on the IPFW women's team and implement 3 preventive measures to see if they worked or not. Those 3 measures, I presented over 6 just now. 3 of them are relatively new to me, but the 3 that I was looking to study in the IPFW women's soccer team is if you use only new balls, so avoiding cracked balls, and then ensuring proper technique, and strengthening neck muscles. And because I'm working with human subjects, that I needed IRB approval. I was advised to submit an expedited IRB form, and I turned that in early July of 2015, giving me around 8 weeks to get both approval and to get the project off the ground. It's a long story, I can tell you about it later, but I was neither ever rejected or approved to continue with this aspect of my project. And then I was going to present these findings at local soccer clubs. Fort Wayne United's up there, Fort Wayne Fusion's up there, and they're both clubs here in Fort Wayne. And I was going to give about an hour-long presentation about how to prevent concussions to the athletes at these 2 clubs. None of that worked out, so I have changed my project quite drastically. Now I am coaching a team out at Paul Harding Middle School. In order to do so, in order to establish some credibility, I obtained both my F&E coaching licenses. They're a national coaching license. You go to a weekend thing, the directors of coaching in Indiana come, you have to be certified, you have to do a bunch of work before, you have to do a bunch of work after. And it's basically a course, like I think it's a 16-hour course over the weekend, and you learn how to coach properly, make sure you're teaching proper technique, and concussions were actually a big aspect of that as well. And I also took a concussion prevention course through the same licensing body, and to make sure that I knew the proper technique, make sure I knew how to prevent concussions. And then this program that I'm coaching with is a brand new program. They've never had soccer before. And so I actually helped create the program, found teams to play, found athletes to play, and we're at about 25 girls right now. So our first game is next Tuesday. And the real kicker is that none of these kids have really played soccer before, so they're a fresh batch and they have no idea about any of the rules of soccer, making it quite the experience. Actually, when I first went to one of our practices, they did it like a header. They're middle school age, so it's 12, 13. And so one of them did a header and they stopped, clapped for each other, and we're like, yay, you did a head bump, that's so great. And so we had to talk, A, that a head bump is not the proper technology, and B, we can't just stop and cheer for each other whenever someone does something good. It's been quite the process, really. And so I just told you all about these great 6 preventive measures I've been researching, and I'm actually working to implement them with my team as well. So I work with my team about 12 hours a week, but that's just including games and practices, no travel time or anything. We've been practicing for 8 weeks, or 4 times a week for 8 weeks, and I've been actually working with them since February, just on a weekly basis, because it was soccer club at first. But now we're fully fledged team. We have games. You can actually see this is our April schedule I crafted for them, and this is our first game next Tuesday if you guys are available. Want some really bad soccer to watch. And so I've spent about 100 hours right now coaching this team and getting everything off the ground. And I am hoping to prevent concussions by ensuring that proper technique is always used. Since they've never learned how to head the ball, it makes it easier because there's no bad habits to break. So I just have to focus on making sure that they know how to correctly do it, which I think I'm pretty good. I know after 4 years of playing Division I soccer, and then taking that course also helped. Ensuring that the correct equipment is always used. Since I'm the coach, I have full reign on what equipment is used, and so we're always using the correct size balls. Our balls are new, they're relatively new, they're not cracked. I always inspect them for that. And then I ensure that safe play is practiced every day. And so this one is actually a little bit more challenging because, again, they've never played before. They have no idea what a foul is. I had one girl just upheave another one. I had to explain that we cannot do that, and this is not football practice, and tryouts for that are in the fall. So it's been quite the experience, but ensuring that safe play occurs so that none of those elbows to head can occur or head-to-head contacts can occur. And then sharing the information. Okay, so I have brought samples of my brochure. If you can just there's 3 for this side of the room. If you just want to look at it and just spread them out. I also have it in my PowerPoint as well, so if you don't get to see it, don't worry, you will. And so I actually crafted a brochure that contained the information that has been accumulated, including what is a concussion, some common symptoms, and the 6 measures that I keep reiterating. The brochure will be distributed to all the teams that the Harding Hawks, that's my team's name, will play. So each time we go to a game, I'm going to distribute them to the coaches. So the expected impact is around 216 female athletes in the Fort Wayne area, because there's around 18 kids per team. These numbers are all underestimates. I have 25 kids on my team, and I don't know if any of the other teams cut or not. We didn't. So there's 18 kids per team, there's 12 teams per season, so that gets me to around 216 local kids being impacted by just these brochures that I'm handing out, and just the coaches trying to implement these 6 measures. The boys' teams always play before us, so if they take the brochures as well, or if the female coaches share the information, then there's another 216 male athletes. And while things like neck strengthening muscles might not be as readily applicable to them, there's still a lot of good information in there, and boys soccer does have a high concussion rate as well. So the potential impact of my project right now is around 432 kids just in the Fort Wayne area alone, which I think is pretty decent. So if you didn't have the pleasure of looking at my little brochure copy, I can kind of walk you through it. This is the front panel. There's this nice giant white space there, which is not going to be there when I start handing these out. I was informed that I need to get waivers signed by the athletes in order to put pictures of them anywhere, and so I'm going to get a waiver signed, and I'm going to put a picture there. I think using pictures of them will make it more local, make it more relatable, and show like the target population. So I'm going to put a picture of them in there. That's the reason why, but I can't have it in at this time. So yeah, that's the front panel. This is the first page when you open up to it, the what is a concussion section. And it explains just briefly like what a concussion is and some of the many symptoms that are associated. It explains that female soccer players are one of the most susceptible populations and why we need to be especially watchful of them as coaches. And then it includes a line about exhibiting symptoms needs to be taken seriously, and a medical expert needs to confirm, which can be either an athletic trainer, a doctor. And then it mentions at the bottom that a SCAT-2 test can be used to identify a concussion. A SCAT-2 test is a fully comprehensive, 3-page PDF document of what a concussion is and what the symptoms are, and it has a scale. It's very, very, very comprehensive. And so the further information panel is actually the back page of my brochure for those of you that looked at it. And it just includes some useful links and a link to the SCAT-2 test right there. So if you type in that exact link, you can pull it up automatically. And it's just a PDF, so you can print it out, or you can just have it on your phone, iPad, whatever. Then there's also a brief little blurb about how this is not medical advice or to advise advertise the websites above. The inside, again, white space. Yes, I'm going to put pictures of my team there practicing, just again with the waivers, and I didn't want to violate anyone's privacy. And so I basically mention in the first paragraph the myths, because I do think it's important to realize that those things do not prevent concussions, and we need to do things that actually do prevent them and have been empirically proven to prevent them, whereas just folklores that might prevent them. And then for coaches that don't really want to read things, the main points are in the orange font, and a little bit about each of those is followed behind. And then I have some of the medical concerns associated with concussions in there, which I think it's important to know why we should prevent them. Everyone's like, oh yeah, a concussion's bad enough. Unfortunately, it can lead to very severe consequences down the road. And one of these is chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Sorry. Whew. And so CTE, this has been very prevalent in the media lately. I don't know how many of you follow soccer, but Brandy Chastain's recently decided to donate her brain to science after she dies so they can study this disease in her. So it's a very hot topic item. Unfortunately, it's being found in high school athletes now that pass away, just athletes that partook in sports in high school. So it's on the rise, and they're starting to figure out more about it, but unfortunately, you can't diagnose it until after the victim has died, because you have to do a brain autopsy. So yeah, and then Alzheimer's disease is also associated with too many concussions. It's not as direct a link, but it's found that those that suffer a number of head traumas, such as concussions, even though those are minor head traumas, they are more likely to develop dementia as they get older. So I thought it was important to include some of the medical concerns, because people sometimes don't realize that there is long-term effects, and they just focus on the here, the now, and the fact that they want to get their kids back on the field as soon as possible. Whereas it's important to prevent your kids from going back onto the field too early. All right, and some of the conclusions I've drawn. So the projects set forth to us, they're supposed to have these 3 elements: a research element, a civic engagement, and a legacy and sustainability component. So my research element was mostly conducted during my junior year, and I read and synthesized information from over 50 peer-reviewed and published articles, along with a number of websites. I thought it was important to use peer-reviewed published articles simply because then you know the science is real. Anyone can kind of post on a website. And while there are some more reputable websites, and I include them in my brochure for more general information, a lot of the studies about the nitty-gritty, how to prevent concussions, is found in those peer-reviewed and published articles. So there's a lot of time going through that. And so that was the literature review is a huge aspect of the research component. Civic engagement, for the part of it, I created and coached a new team in the Fort Wayne area. This team has never existed before, and I've spent, I think, almost 100 hours now, and we're in week 3. So there's more to come, hopefully, if they come back. But no, it's been really, I keep getting more kids each time because they hear how much fun soccer club, or it's now soccer practice, is, and so they keep coming back, and now I have like 25 kids, and hopefully the numbers stop increasing, because I don't know if I have enough jerseys for everyone, like, it's quite the crisis, but they're all very excited, and they're really enjoying it, so it's been a lot of fun. Our team actually has it's a lot of fun working with them just because they've never played soccer before, so it's so much fun to watch people who are so fresh in the game and they really enjoy it, and I've never seen such excellent team camaraderie. There is very little competitiveness, just what a coach wants to hear. And so, but anytime anyone does anything good, it's just like, oh my gosh, you're so good today. And so it's really a lot of fun to watch them, and they make it great, and it's funny. But yeah, so then insofar as the legacy and sustainability, these brochures will be kept on file at Paul Harding, and I've talked to them. They think they can print them out and distribute them every year. So still working out the details in that, but don't worry, there's like 8 weeks left in the season, so we got time to figure that one out. And then a little bit about the importance of my project and how I personally benefited and how I think the Fort Wayne community benefited. And so, alone there's been numerous studies that have been done that can show the benefits of youth sports. Anything from increasing confidence, increasing the ability to work as a team. There's so many things that can be done, or that can be benefited from playing in youth sports. And then by implementing these 6 measures, hopefully these young athletes will have the opportunity to continue playing soccer without having to worry about long-term issues such as CTE or dementia, and they can just continue to have fun in the game and not have to worry about anything severe happening to them on the medical front of things. And then what's important to me is I've worked 2 years trying to compile this information, trying to find everyday ways that you can prevent concussions in a sport that I've played for a number of years, played at the collegiate level for 4 years. And so I think by spreading this information that I've acquired, there's a lot of it, and those 6 are just the ones I think that can be easily applied in everyday trainings. Hundreds of kids throughout the area can actually limit the number of concussions they experience on an annual basis. And that's all I have. So if you have questions, I guess we have more time for them. It's okay if you don't have questions. Really? Yes.
So, thank you very much. Can you describe your team a little bit more and why you chose Paul Harding and kind of the makeup of your students and your...
My team's diversity is a little crazy. I'm the only Caucasian person. And so I think I never have taken an official poll, but this is what I think is correct. We are 50% Burmese, we are 40% Latina, and we are, I think, around 10% African American. So we are very diverse. I'm not, but they are. And so it's been, and then they've never played soccer before, so they've only just played, I took a poll the first day, and I'm like, all right, who's played soccer before? And everyone's hands raised. I'm like, who's played soccer outside of gym before? And they're like, or PE before? And about half the hands stay in the air. And then I was like, who's played on a real team before with jerseys? No hands. And I'm like, where are you guys playing at? And they're like, oh, we just play in the yards with our brothers. And so I think that it's kind of cool to be able to give them something to do now, and I have a way to actually compete in a sport they've obviously been playing for years, but just have never had a formal way to play, and I think that's kind of cool. So, but yeah, that was the makeup of my team. Yes.
So you have an opportunity to enact what you're doing, which is
yes, really cool. On a day-to-day basis. Well, 4 days a week. I don't practice on Friday, we don't practice on Wednesdays. I have lab, so.
But what I'm wondering is, one of the things you said, one of the rules now is that if they're under 13, they're supposed to have limited
exposure. Yes.
How do you know if they have limited exposure? How do you make sure that
So one way to make sure, because I've thought about this as well. One ways to make sure is, so a lot of drills you can do, all right, let's practice our headers now. So the coach or another player lofts the ball in the head to them, they head it back. So, I mean, when I was growing up, and other soccer players can attribute to this as well, there's one in the audience, you would do this and it'd be like, all right, 10 times each. So, which seems like nothing, 10 times, that's only 10 times. We do it on a day-to-day basis, and that's 50 times a week. So one of the ways is to only do that particular drill once a week. So that's 10 exposures, and then you're leaving 10 up to chance in more of like practice scenarios. So I like to, at least in my concept, or when I design my practices, I try to make sure because it is important to practice heading, because otherwise they will not know how to do it. So I do make sure that we do a day of, all right, 10 headers, make sure you're practicing the right technique, and so we do that just to make sure the proper technique is being learned and enforced. But I leave at least 10 other exposures up to just game chances, because you can't control what's really happening in the game, and I like to have like a buffer so that we don't go close to it. So then I haven't officially counted, but I can tell you the number of headers experienced in a practice is around 3. So, and that's by 3 different kids, so they're not getting anywhere close to it is the good news. So, but yes, that's a good point. You have to.
Balancing act between
Yes, and it is.
how to do it and then not having to do it.
No, and then and then since I actually I have all the equipment, it's in my car. So I bring it all, and so when we actually are going to practice heading, I'll deflate the balls a little bit, because that's been proven to decrease the impact. And I still limit it at 20 exposures a week, but by decreasing the ball pressure, I've read empirically that it can actually limit the concussion rate. So I do that as well, and then I'll pump them back up, and then we'll go on our day. So yes, Dr. Lindahl.
A couple of questions. Have you talked with the Patriots about how to deflate the balls?
I have, yes. They were very informative. I did. No, they were great. Yeah, they had some techniques I'd never even heard of, so it was good.
I played soccer in the early '60s, and they had leather balls in, and
Right.
the balls now are not heavy, even if they get water in.
Right.
I mean, those were heavy balls.
Yes.
I was amazed at one of your early slides, the difference between concussions in men baseball players and women softball players. I mean, there was about at least a 4-fold
I don't know.
greater incidence in women than in the men.
I don't know if it's because their pitching is more out of control. I don't know what it is. I think I read that as a potential. I don't know anything about baseball or softball, but the same. I can get you a copy of this today. But yeah, I think it was pitching errors that ended up being it, because they would wing the ball in there, and I don't know why that was it, but I guess that was what the researchers were attributing it to. Caitlin might be able to touch more on it. She's a pitcher.
In the outfield, they're a lot closer together than baseball players. I've just seen it in the outfield.
Right, so yeah, and I'm not sure, and this was just with I know nothing about softball or baseball, and I can't even pretend to be an expert, but the researchers were like, oh, maybe the pitching is more underhand, and that's why, and then, yeah, I kind of remember reading something about they're closer, so.
What's getting hit with the ball is...
I think so. That's what I read, and again, she would know more about it. I just, yeah.
From what I've seen is in the outfield, when they're both going for a ball, they're not communicating and they run into each other, or like they run into the fence because somebody hasn't told them that it's there.
I thought women were much better at communicating.
Jeez, Caitlin, you're not helping.
The real question is that you've mentioned a lot about neck strengthening.
I'm sorry, what?
You've
Neck
mentioned a
strengthening,
lot
yes.
about strengthening the
Yes.
neck. When do you think you should start doing that, and what are the proper techniques to start doing that?
Yes, okay,
And,
so I've
and
done...
I think something like that should be in the brochure.
Yes, that makes sense. Yeah, I can definitely, it's not finalized yet, and I have until Tuesday to finalize it. But yeah, I think you're right. The hard part is that on the number of studies I've been doing, they've identified muscles that they think can help. It's very difficult to obviously do any real research on people. It has to be more of like correlative studies, because you can't be like, all right, like I need these 6-year-olds to go out and strengthen their necks. It's working with children. You're doing something medical. I think that's the issue with why there's no real research done with that. However, I did read a couple studies that talked about specific muscles, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but there are like 7 muscles that they have identified as potentially being able to help with that specific thing, and they've actually found exercises that do strengthen those specific muscles. So yeah, I can definitely work to include that in the brochure. And there's like 7 muscles. They're really long, and I can't remember them. So.
I shouldn't ask this, but do you know how many muscles there are in the neck?
No. My anatomy was sophomore year, so Dr. Jordan can tell you if you. But yeah, no, I'm not sure. But I do know that they've identified 7 that can help, and and they've actually proven how to strengthen those. And they've done a study that shows that.
Should you start as a 6-year-old or a
I don't-
15-year-old?
I guess the thing is with the new U.S. soccer regulations, you aren't doing heading until you're 12 anyways, right? So
But you should strengthen the muscles.
before that, yeah, I'm not really sure. I don't know if there's anything been done about it, to be honest with you. I haven't seen anything. It's a really interesting point. It'd be interesting to study when they think the appropriate age is. I just don't know. So, yes.
Caleb Sloan, I'm Scholar Alumnus. My question for you is, so you've been working with a girls' team.
Yes.
Does the school have a boys' team as well?
There is a boys' team, yes.
Have you worked with coordinated with the boys' team to talk about the concussions and to,
No,
spread
I
the
have not really. We don't practice at the same time,
Right,
so.
okay. So I didn't know if that was.
No, I haven't. I plan on giving him some of the information as well as a nifty little brochure. No, and I've talked to him a number of times. So we've talked about it, but I haven't given him like, here's what I think you should do kind of information. Because again, my project's always been more focused on female soccer players, but it's definitely something I can reach out and do. That's a good point. Thanks. Yes.
I'm also wondering if you have any plans, is there a Fort Wayne soccer's coach organization or anything that you could at least reach out to and say, here's some information that might be particularly
Yeah, I can. Each club has a director of coaching, and I can definitely look into emailing them and saying, although I don't work with any of your teams directly, and I don't. But I can email them and be like, I've compiled this research, and here's a copy of my brochure. Feel free to use it as you see fit. I hope it can help. We're all working together to limit this issue.
Yeah, I think that because then you can reach a little further than just the middle school
Right.
and just the teams that.
Yeah, no,
already
that's
have
an
this.
excellent point. I can definitely do that. That's a really, I hadn't thought about that. So yeah, I can definitely email the DOCs and tell them and include the brochure that I've created and tell them where I'm coming from. So no, that's a good point. Thank you. Yes.
Kind of an extension on that, but you got your 2 licensures, whatever, C and F or whatever they were. Is that mandatory for all soccer coaches?
No, it is not. I did it to increase my credibility as I'm incredibly young, so I know. And so yeah, I did it to increase my credibility so that when parents came up to me, I would be able to say, oh, I've played for 4 years as a Division I athlete and I'm licensed to coach. And yeah, I think it's a good thing to do, especially because they do have a huge segment on concussions. And
So there is something on concussions in
there is, yeah. And then that course I took, I mentioned in my presentation, actually is a part of that. You have to take that in order to get one of your licenses. I can't remember what. You have to take it to get your E license. So I couldn't continue on with my coaching licenses until I took that particular subset of the course. And
It's critical for all coaches
yeah,
to
and,
be
and
aware.
it's free and it's online. So I don't know why they don't have people do it. So yeah, I completely agree. I don't know why it's not mandatory, but it should be.
Could you be a spearhead for that in the Fort Wayne area?
I suppose, yeah. I mean, I think it's just a link is the thing. So I mean, yeah, when I email the DOCs and then I can include maybe, I don't know. So when I hand out the brochures, I guess I can include like a letter about who I am, why I'm doing this, and then just to the coaches, because the brochures I think can be handed out to like parents as well.
How about the athletic directors?
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Okay, that makes
Oh,
sense.
that's a good idea.
So yeah, that's a good point. So then what you're saying is I should email the athletic directors, or I think email's probably the best bet. Email the athletic directors and then send them where I'm coming from, include the brochure, and then you should also look into getting your coaches concussion prevention licensed.
Do football coaches have to get licensed, or?
I have no idea. I don't know anything about it. I don't know. I know a lot of people don't opt into doing any of the licenses, but again, I did it to establish some credibility, and I plan on pursuing coaching as at least a part-time thing. So, but yeah, that's a good point. I'll definitely keep that in mind. Yes.
I wanted to follow up on a statement in response to Marcia. You said you hoped that it would help. Were there any strategies or approaches that you explored to see if this brochure actually is raising the awareness of the issue? And are there any safeguards or things that are actually being implemented?
I think what you're, okay, so no, I have not, well, the brochure's not been given out to any teams yet, so I don't know how to say whether it'll be effective or not. I can, however, say that a number of the coaches are not aware of the issues with concussions, and so I think just by handing them something that says, look, this is an issue, they will, and it's easy to prevent. You can, checking for cracked balls takes 20 seconds. Oh, this ball's cracked, we can't use it. So I think, and all the things I tried to include were very simple and things that, I mean, proper technique that should be taught. And so I think that while I can't comment on how effective it is, because I haven't done it, I think the hard part with a lot of these coaches is that they're very, very low level because there's no money in it. And a lot of your higher level coaches are at clubs, like club soccer. So I don't think they really know that it's an issue. And I don't think a lot of people know that it's an issue. I remember growing up that no one really talked about concussions, and if it happened, it did, and you came back 3 weeks later and you were seemingly good to go, but I don't think anyone really knows about there are long-term effects. And while there is more media awareness now, I think that's a fair statement. I still don't think people that really aren't in the soccer culture really know what an issue concussions are. And unfortunately, for a lot of these kids, the coaches are not that great and not that immersed in the soccer culture, whereas I've been involved in soccer for a number of years, and I have my licenses with our national body. So I think what I'm trying to say is I don't know how effective it'll be. Hopefully, just showing them that this is an issue, and there are so many things that you can do to help prevent it, and easy things too. I think that that'll help. But yeah, I can't comment on whether it will be effective. I think it will be. That's why I'm doing it. But I can't say for sure. But I think it will. Hope that answered your question. Yeah.
So what part of the head should athletes use to
You
head the
should
ball?
use your forehead. You shouldn't be using the top of your, and that's the hard part with a lot of kids when they think, oh yeah, I need to head it. They like go with this part of your skull, which is not really what you're supposed to be doing. And then you also want to avoid like the sides also, as well, and your general face area. So for a number of reasons, including you can break your nose, which I've done. So yeah, you want to use your forehead, and you want to definitely avoid the top of your head. So yeah, good question. Thanks. You can go first.
So this is kind of a personal question for you, but is it going to be hard for you like to give up your team because you're not going to stay with them?
I know, you're exactly right. When I first started, I didn't anticipate how much I would enjoy it. I can't stay because I will be going to the University of Cincinnati next year to pursue my master's degree, so that's not an option. But yeah, I think it'll be really hard. It's a lot of fun. They're so funny and they're so terrible, and it just really warms my heart to watch. They try so hard, and I'm like, all right, like you gotta run today, and they're like, no, please don't make us, and I'm like, but we gotta be better, and so they'll go off run. And a lot of them, they've never played sports before, and I didn't cut anyone because I felt it's hard to cut someone who wants to do it, and a lot of them, they don't have anything to do after school. They asked if we could practice on Fridays because they're like, we don't have anything to do on the weekends. And I was like, sure, Fridays. I'd love to give up my Fridays. How did you know I wanted to give up my Fridays? But yeah, so it's been really great, and it will be really hard to give them up because they're funny. Yeah. But yeah, it'll be difficult. I try not to think about it. May 23rd. That's when it's over. Caitlin, did you have a question?
Yeah, how did you pick the middle school?
How did I pick them? They were thinking about starting a team, but they weren't sure, and they needed someone to do a lot of work to make sure it worked. So
how did you hear about it?
I heard about it through our coach, Jason. Yes.
So just really quick, on the note of getting them up, of having to leave,
Yeah.
and I don't want to create too much work for you to do in the future, but do you think it would be beneficial to sort of make notes to leave behind for whoever?
Yeah, I was thinking about that as well. I think I'm going to create, not a manual, because that seems a little, not how to tell you how to install a computer, but I think I am going to create some kind of, this is what I've done, this is what our practices look like, just to make sure it's a smooth transition for them, because it's hard, I'm sure, to have a new coach. I know it's hard whenever we switch coaches, so to make sure the transition's smooth for them, and they know that I can't come back, unfortunately, but they did need someone to get the program off the ground and someone who was willing to make it work, and I told them I would do whatever it took to get this program off the ground. So they knew it was going to be a short
materials too is the other thing I was going to suggest.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's perfect. I'll definitely do that. I was thinking about doing it anyways, but it didn't really seem to fit in with my project so much. So, but yeah, definitely.
So they have someone lined up that's gonna take over your spot, or like they're aware.
They said as long as I could get this off the ground and drummed up enough interest to have it continue on, they would definitely keep it going. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't cut anyone, because how awkward would it be to cut and keep all the 8th graders and then them leave, and then I cut all the 7th graders, so they would have no interest in coming back. So that's another reason why I didn't cut anyone, because I wanted the interest to be there, and they love it. And the athletic director comes up to me, he's like, I've heard such great things about soccer, and they all love it, and the kids just love being a part of it, and they're like, they'll definitely do it next year. So they were not on the fence at first, but they were like, we had to make sure it's feasible, and we had to make sure it's doable, and people are interested, because, I mean, if no one's interested, then there can't be a soccer team there. But the interest level has only increased, so it's been good. But yeah. No one else? We're good to go? I'm done? Yes.